All rise. The 60th District Court now resumes. You may proceed.
We're back on the record in People v. Jeffrey Thomas Willis, file 16180-186FY, and we're resuming the preliminary examination. And if I could have the attorneys at sidebar real quick, and then we'll resume with Sergeant Crump, I believe. Lieutenant. Lieutenant, you can resume your stand. And Lieutenant, I'll remind you you're under oath from this morning.
Yes, sir.
I believe Mr. Hilton had concluded his direct stand, and I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Cross.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, Lieutenant.
Good afternoon, sir.
I want to start off by making clear what you had to work with for your comparisons, okay?
Okay.
You testified that, and I think it's in your record number 3, you had 3 fired lead bullets, as well as bullet fragments, and 3 casings.
Correct.
Okay. When you say fragments, that you're not referring to the 3 fired bullets, right?
I'm not.
You had 3 intact fired bullets plus fragments.
Plus a couple of fragments, one of which turned out to be, it looked like a piece of asphalt. So it wasn't even a metallic fragment.
Okay. My first question is, when I look at the autopsy report of Ms. Bletch that's already been admitted into evidence, there's a notation of 3 gunshot wounds. In fact, I've got to mark this. It's already is. I'm not sure. I'm going to right offhand. The autopsy report.
Should be marked 66.
All right. This is the People's Exhibit, number 66. I'm just going to refer you to pages 13 and 14. This is the investigative findings of the autopsy, just a brief synopsis, where they outline what was recovered from the 3 gunshot wounds. I guess you don't need to look at it, I can just tell you. With each wound, the doctor wrote that fragments were recovered. But it's your contention that 3 completely unbroken bullets were found, that were provided to you.
There was enough of each of those bullets for me to call it each one of them a fired bullet.
Okay, does that mean they were not whole?
No, that does not mean that. They had lost some weight, so there were portions of them missing.
Okay, so what the doctor may call bullet fragments, you would consider to be full bullets.
Correct.
But there's only 3, and you were sent 4. That is 3 bullets and 1 set of fragments.
When I say fragment, I'm talking about a very small particle which I really can't do anything with, which was the case in this situation.
Okay, so the fragments weren't a part of your analysis, and you got nothing fruitful from examining them.
Correct.
Okay, it's just the 3 intact, the 3 fired lead bullets.
Correct.
Okay. And who sent those to you?
Those were, I believe, submitted by Deputy Brian Harris.
Okay. And you got those years ago, correct?
From the date on my report, those were received on July 1st of 2014.
Okay. And during that time between then and now, you've been given other 22s to do comparisons with these bullets?
Correct.
Okay. And the gun that has been entered into evidence in this case, the Walther P22, when did you receive that?
It looks like May 18 of 2016.
And you're referring to your notes to refresh your memory?
For my report, yes.
Okay. What did you know about that gun when you got it?
That it was recovered in during a scene which I was not part of, and honestly, I don't know what was told to me about it when it came back to the lab.
Okay.
I don't know what connections this had other than to potentially a kidnapping attempt.
Okay. Were you told who the owner of the gun was? Or the suspected, I should say owner, I guess, but who had the gun, who it was recovered from?
I don't know if I ever heard the name at that time.
Okay. Were you told that there was the suspicion that this was the gun used in the Rebecca Bletch homicide?
I don't know for sure. It's possible because for quite a while I was telling the investigators that they should be looking for a Walther P22. So when they recovered it, perhaps they had mentioned it to me.
So your job basically was to make a microscopic comparison to try to match the patterns on the bullets you had with the patterns on bullets you test fired from the Walther P22.
That's correct.
Okay. And you're looking for tool marks? Is that the right term?
Yes, they can be called tool marks. We call them individual characteristics that are unique to the firearm, and they're unique to that firearm because of the manufacturing process that the firearm goes through. So each firearm has its own set of unique individual characteristics.
Okay. But tool marks, isn't that broader? Doesn't that refer to class characteristics also?
It can, yes.
Okay. And class characteristics are common to every gun in that particular class?
They can be common to a number of guns, say a caliber is a class characteristic, or the number of lands and grooves is a class characteristic. So those can be common to many guns of different manufacturer.
And the caliber of a gun is the diameter inside the barrel?
Yes.
Okay. And a .22 is probably the smallest of commonly used guns? Is that
They're smaller, but .22 is one of the most common in that small caliber, yes.
Okay. And individual characteristics are what you said you believe are unique to each particular gun.
Correct.
Right? It could be from wear and tear on the gun.
Correct.
Could be from some defect in the manufacturing process.
It's right. There are basically they're microscopic imperfections that are left on the firearm when say a fired bullet passes through the barrel of the firearm. Those imperfections can be transferred over to the bullet, or imperfections can be transferred over to a fired cartridge case, from the firing pin, from breech face, from chamber marks, from extractor, ejector. So there's all different areas of the firearm that can transfer over any microscopic imperfection that they have.
Okay. So does that mean a longer barrel would make it easier to make a match?
Not necessarily, no.
No? Okay. What about the caliber?
Caliber, it's not really the caliber, but it's more the manufacturing of the firearm.
What do you mean?
The tooling used to manufacture a firearm, most of the tooling, they have cutting surfaces that are actually cutting the firearm. So it's cutting the lands and grooves on the inside of the barrel, or it's cutting down the breech face of the firearm, or it's milling the breech face, or smoothing out the firing pin. Each time that tool is used in one firearm, you're changing the cutting surface of that tool. So from one firearm to the next, it's leaving behind different marks. So it's really the tooling that is used, and that could be from any number. It would be used in any number of caliber of firearms. So it's not really the caliber that makes the difference.
Okay. So two guns manufactured consecutively, you believe would still have different tool mark characteristics because of changes in the tool that created the barrel?
That's, yes, and they do have different individual characteristics. I've actually taken part in about 5 or 6 different validity tests where we were given unknown samples to compare to known samples from consecutively manufactured firearms. And in those validity tests, I was able to correctly match the unknowns back to the correct barrel or breech face that they were fired from.
Okay. That was with one manufacturer, right?
Those validity tests probably involved maybe 3 or 4 different manufacturers.
What do you know about Walther?
As far as their manufacturing,
Yeah.
nothing specific, other than they would use probably the same type of tooling, whether using a broach-type cutter to manufacture their barrels, from all kinds of different tooling to manufacture their slides, their firing pins, etc.
So you don't know how they're...
I've not visited their factory, and so I don't know specifically how they manufacture their firearms.
They're made in Germany?
I don't know if they all are made in Germany. I think they have a partnership with Smith & Wesson, so I don't know. Potentially that model could be made in the U.S. I'm not sure.
CCI, is that an acronym, or is that the name of bullet manufacturer that they just use CCI?
Honestly, I don't know if it stands for something for the company name. I don't know what it stands for, but that's it's either CCI/Spear. It's kind of the same company.
They are a large producer of ammunition, correct?
I would say so,
In
yes.
the United States.
I would say so, yes.
Would you say they're the largest manufacturer of .22 bullets? in the United States?
I have no idea, sir.
When you tested the Walther, at issue here, was it in good repair?
I found it to be in good shape and didn't notice any defects with it or didn't notice any malfunctions when I was test firing it.
How many times did you test fire it for this particular test?
I don't have the firearms worksheet which would indicate that, but I know minimally 5, because I have 5 test shots listed on my microscope sheet. I may have taken more than that.
Okay, so you had 5 bullets to compare to the 3 that you received as evidence.
I kept 3 bullets and only used those 3 for the identification purposes. However, I took more tests for the fired cartridge case comparison. So I have 5 fired cartridge cases and 3 fired bullets as test shots.
Okay. But the 22 bullets, they're a cheaper bullet too, right? I mean, people use 22s for target practice and just...
Yeah, they're going to be a lesser expense than a larger caliber bullet, yes.
Are they softer than larger caliber bullets?
As far as the bullet itself and not the cartridge,
The bullet itself?
Yeah, I guess you could say that. It's basically lead, and usually the 22s will have, instead of a copper jacket, they just have a like an electroplated coating, so it could be a copper coating. Like Remington uses what's called gold tone, and that's proprietary. I don't even know what that is, but it covers the surface of the lead. So it's a little bit different than a jacketed bullet.
What did you fire the test bullets into?
A water tank.
Okay. Wouldn't there be a difference between firing the tool marks or the marks left on a bullet fired into a water tank versus bullets recovered from somebody's body?
The marks left behind are going to be the same because it's the marks from the firearm that are being imparted on that. What firing into a water tank gives us an intact bullet to compare to. The difference with potentially a bullet pulled from a body is that those tend to be damaged or be missing some portion of themselves, so we may have less to compare to on those bullets.
And you found that to be the case with these 3 bullets?
I did.
Okay. So you're basically you put them under the microscope, or do you photograph them and compare photographs?
We use what's called a comparison microscope, and that has 2 stages. So I can put a piece of evidence on one side and a test shot on the other side. When I look through the viewfinder, I can see both items through a split screen, and then I can manipulate both items at the same time. So if I have individual matching characteristics that I'm trying to see if they match up, I can manipulate those on the microscope and to look for the matching areas.
Okay, so you're looking through the microscope, turning the bullets, and comparing the marks you see on the bullets with each other.
Correct.
That's the extent.
That's
of
basically it, yes, sir.
Okay, so it's not science.
We consider it a science, as firearms examiners are concerned. Yes.
Comparing 2 things to see what's the same and what's different is science.
Well, we base our science on a theory, which the theory of firearms identification, which says that all firearms are unique because of the way they're manufactured and the way they're used. We've proven that theory through validity tests.
Proven?
Yes.
That every gun in the world has unique. Go ahead.
It's proven that firearms examiners can identify unknowns back to a known through these validity tests. That proves the theory that it can be done. Now, when we apply this theory in practice, we make what we call a practical identification. It's not an absolute identification. So in order for it to be an absolute identification, I would have to compare that evidence to every other Walther P22 that's ever been made, and that's impossible.
Are you aware that courts around the country more and more refuse to allow ballistic experts to use the word science?
I'm going to object to that, Judge. I mean, one, you better bring somebody in that's going to say that.
I can bring case law.
I guess I'm not even sure that it's relevant, and I'm not sure how, even if Lieutenant Crump knows that, but that to me is a statement that is of no consequences.
Well, Mr. Hostiger, you're entitled to cross-examine with any good faith on any relevant point, and I'll allow that. What's your good faith basis to cross-examine on this point?
Lieutenant Crump says he considers it a science, and I'm disputing that fact.
Well, water freezing at 32 degrees Fahrenheit would be considered science, but I would bet everybody in this room would think that that's common knowledge. That's still science. So if you're going to attack Mr. Crump's or Lieutenant Crump's position as it's not scientific, I'm not going there. I'm not buying that. So
You're not buying that it's not science?
I'm buying it is science. So move on.
Is there any, has there ever been any proven,
Strike that. Are you aware of any way for a meaningful comparison of like error rates, for instance, when ballistics comparisons are done?
Well, the best examples that we in the field have for error rates are through the proficiency tests that we take through a company called Collaborative Testing Services. And through those tests, anybody basically throughout the country, whether you're a firearms examiner or not, can order those tests, take them, send in the results. And even though CTS, Collaborative Testing Services, says not to use their results as error rates, we'll tend to pull out that information as our best estimate for error rates.
Okay. Will you agree with me when you're comparing two bullets and the markings on those bullets in order to judge whether or not they came from the same tool, that is inherently subjective?
It is a subjective science, yes.
one moment, Judge, please.
Are there interchangeable parts to the Walther P22, like the barrel, for instance?
I get, can you clarify what you mean by interchangeable?
Can you take it apart and use the replacement parts to put it back together again, such as the barrel?
Oh, sure. Pretty much any firearm, including the P22, if a part breaks on it, you can order new parts and put it on the firearm to make it operable again. You could potentially order a new barrel from the company and put a new barrel in the firearm. Pretty much anything needed you could order from the company as a new part to replace with.
Thank you.
I've nothing, Judge, thank you.
And I have no questions. Lieutenant, may the witness be excused?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hopkins,
I'm sorry, Judge.
may the witness be excused?
Yes.
Lieutenant, you're excused.
Thanks, sir.
Your Honor, the people of the state of Michigan call Detective Chad Peterson, excuse me, to the stand.
Better not put any opposed parties on Mr. Rizal. Truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Have a seat, state your name, and occupation.
Chad Peterson with the Muskegon County Sheriff's Department, detective.
How many years have you been working with the Sheriff's Department?
A little over 16.
And I think you've indicated you're now working as a detective, is that correct?
Yes.
In particular, are you kind of the evidence guy in the Bureau?
Yes.
All right. You recall taking part in some search warrants, in particular at 1842 Sheridan, South Sheridan, here in Muskegon County.
Yes.
And is it safe to say that your role in this whole, in the search warrants were once evidence was discovered, did you take pictures of it and collect it?
Correct. Yes.
All right. I want to direct you to the first search warrant that was done. I believe it was right around the 17th of May, 2016. In particular, on Sheridan, do you recall, I'll show you this picture, this is People's Exhibit 46. Do you recall seeing and recovering that?
Yes.
And what is that, sir?
I believe it's a Versa handgun,
380?
380 caliber. Yes.
And do you recall, in general, where that was found?
That was in the master bedroom in a dresser drawer.
Okay. And is that, this picture, Exhibit 46, is that how it looked to you when you took the picture and collected it?
Yes.
All right. Looking at People's Exhibit 47, do you recognize this photograph?
I do.
And what is this a picture of?
A computer tower.
And again, was this computer tower collected during the search on the 17th?
Yes.
No, I got it. Showing you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 82. Is this the computer tower that is depicted in People's Exhibit 47?
Yes.
And do you recall, sir, where this was discovered?
That was in the master bedroom underneath the desk.
All right. Did it? And in this photograph, it appears as though this, it was plugged in. Was that how you found it was kind of connected to the other computer components?
I believe so.
Okay. Exhibit 48. What are we looking at in this photograph?
I believe that's a WD My Passport external hard drive.
And where did you find that?
Again, that was in the master bedroom in a dresser drawer.
Showing you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 83. Is that the actual hard drive that's depicted in People's Exhibit 48?
That's what's on the label, so I believe that's what's inside of this.
Moving on to Exhibit 49, this photograph. What are we looking at in this photograph?
Several computer towers.
In particular, is one of those computer towers a gateway computer tower?
Yes.
And do you recall which one it was? What color? I mean, is it the all gray or is it the black and gray? If you don't, I'm going to show it to you in a second.
Probably have to show it to me.
All right.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Fair enough. Showing you what's marked as People's Exhibit 84. Is that the gateway computer tower that's depicted in that picture?
Yes.
All right. All right, People's Exhibit 50, in particular, that black thumb drive there, recall taking this photograph?
Yes.
Okay. Showing you what's marked as People's Exhibit 85. Does it appear that that is the thumb drive that is depicted in People's Exhibit 50?
Flash drive.
Flash, excuse me, yeah, flash.
Flash drive, yes.
Now, there was a second search on a later date, is that correct?
Yes.
Of that address, 1842 Sheridan?
Yes.
Showing you the photograph marked People's Exhibit 51. What are we looking at in this photograph?
That's a cold air return vent in the living room of that address, to
Okay.
the east wall.
And People's Exhibit 52, is that that same cold air vent?
That is inside of it. It's a picture of inside the vent.
Okay. And what is it? What else is in that photograph?
A WD My Passport external hard drive.
Now, is it, from the two photographs, was that hard drive hidden in that cold air vent?
Yes.
Judge, I'm going to object to that based on speculation.
Well, I tell you what, I'll ask this question. When you looked at that air vent prior to opening it, which is depicted in 51, could you see that hard drive?
No.
In fact, as we look at 51, you can see the cords, is that right?
You can, I'm not sure if those are the cords to that. I believe that's what those are.
Well, let me ask you this, when you first opened it, could you see the hard drive?
No.
And 52, Exhibit 52, I guess maybe you can describe for us, where, is it on the ground, is it up top, where is it located?
You had to open up the vent cover, and inside the vent itself, it was Velcroed on one of the studs inside the wall. So it would, once you opened up the vent, it was on the stud that would be on the right side of the vent.
Okay. All right.
So as to the objection, I'll sustain it as to the word hidden, and the facts will be as they are. That's what your objection was to. Yes, Mr. Officer.
Showing you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 86. What is that, sir?
That is that second WD My Passport external hard drive.
And that's the one that's depicted here in Exhibit 52?
Yes.
All right.
So that's number what?
That's 86, Judge. Finally, Detective Peterson, I know this is just another shot, but Exhibit 53, is that the same hard drive that we've been talking about here?
Yes.
Okay. Now, on that same search warrant, second search warrant, excuse me, do you recall taking a picture of some shirts in a closet?
Yes.
Showing you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 87. Give me a second here. Is that this photo, which is the People's Exhibit 87, is that what we're looking at here? Is that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in the searches that you were a part of on Sheridan, and I'm assuming you were also part of searches on Bailey as well?
I was not at Bailey.
Okay, so let's focus on Sheridan. Did you ever find at Sheridan a airsoft gun?
No,
How about a toy gun?
no,
How about a fake gun that looked like a real gun?
no.
And I'm talking about both days that you searched, the May 17th and then on May 27th.
Neither day did I find anything like that.
Okay. Your Honor, I would move for the admission of 46 through 53. Those are the photographs that we just went through. Except for 87, that's a different story.
And 53,
53
I
was
missed
just,
that one, I apologize.
that's okay, that was a second photograph of the hard drive inside the cold air vent.
Got it. And then the actual hard drive was 86.
Correct.
Found in the cold air return.
Yep, I'll get to those in a second. I'm doing
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm
Yes.
connecting them up.
Yes.
All right, so Mr. Hostica, as to photos, exhibits 46 through 53, your position.
I'm not going to object at this point, Judge, for the preliminary exam, to just the photos of these items.
All right, so photographs 46 through 53 will be admitted into evidence.
I also move, Judge, to admit exhibits 82 through 87.
And Mr. Hostica. If you want to take them singularly, we can do that.
I don't have 82.
82, I
It's the
have,
first tower.
yeah,
The black.
82, I have a computer tower found in master bedroom under a desk.
That's correct.
I guess I don't understand the relevance of this, Judge, but I will not object for preliminary exam purposes.
I can explain the relevance if you want, Judge, if the court requires.
Well, if there's no objection, then I don't need an explanation.
Okay.
I'm going to admit the evidence without objection. So 82 through 87, without objection, will be admitted. I would expect, Mr. Hilson, that you'll have some explanation of the
I sure will.
relevance of those.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, all right, so they're admitted without objection.
I have nothing else, so this witness, Your Honor, thank you.
Mr. Hopkins, cross.
No questions.
All right, and Detective Peterson, I have no questions. May the witness be excused.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Your Honor.
Detective Peterson, you are excused.
Thank you.
Just need one more.
People of the state of Michigan call Officer Ryan Peasky to the stand.
Raise your right hand. Yes. Any matter not pertaining to this court, you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Thank you.
Have a seat, state your name, and ready for your
It's Detective Ryan Peasky. Last name's Pieske with Northern Shores Police Department.
Sorry, Detective, I called you officer. My apologies.
That's okay.
All right. Detective Peasky, did you assist officers in searching the 1842 South Sheridan residence in May of this year?
Yes, I did.
And in particular, I'm going to direct your attention to People's Exhibit 54, this particular shed. You recall taking part in the search of that shed.
Yes, I do.
And directing your attention then to Exhibit 55. As you recall, this green Sony camera bag being found.
Yes.
In particular, were there a couple of items of evidentiary interest in this particular bag?
Yes, there were.
All right, give me 1 second. Handing you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 88. Pull these documents out. Do you recall seeing that particular item in that camera bag?
Yes, I do.
And what is it, sir?
It's a
Hang on a second. What's the objection?
Relevance.
Okay. Mr. Wilson.
Judge, this is a abduction murder prelim. The court has already ruled on 404B evidence. This particular piece of evidence links, in some respects, the 404B evidence the court has already said is coming in. I'm going to proffer it to the court. It's a list of serial killers in the United States. I'm not sure how that's not relevant.
Right, I previously ruled on 404B evidence. My memory is that the prosecutor's brief did address this piece of evidence. So go ahead, Mr. House, I'll hear your objection.
I disagree, Judge. I think you allowed evidence of the attempted abduction of the minor, as well as the homicide of Ms. Fletch. Never specifically any list like this. Quite frankly, I don't think it's relevant to any of the cases. It doesn't make any of these charges any more or less likely to have been committed by Mr. Willis. So it's not relevant.
Well, Judge, Mr. Willis has been accused of killing Rebecca Bletch and kidnapping and killing Jessica Heeringa, as well as kidnapping the minor. To me, that more than one is serial.
If I may, Judge.
You may.
So you find a list with names of serial killers. How could that? How does that make anything that he did more or less likely? All it does is prejudice the already prejudiced pool against Mr. Willis. There's no probative value to make any of these allegations more or less likely because of this list.
Can I add to that, Judge, real quick? On that list are a couple of individuals who in 1979 abducted and killed 5 girls. They were called the Toolbox Killers. Now, we've got some evidence to suggest that the defendant was trying to emulate the Toolbox Killers, in my opinion. I think it's really relevant.
Complete speculation.
Right, well, I want to be clear on this. First off, in our previous motion, I requested briefs in the People's Brief on page 16, the last paragraph, immediately preceding the law and argument section did list as one of the pieces of evidence that the people wanted the court to consider was 5 printed internet pages entitled, quote, list of serial killers in the United States with a hash mark next to Lawrence Whitaker and Roy Norris, kidnapped, tortured, raped, and murdered 5 girls in 1979, end of quote. So I did consider that in weighing the 404B issue. In fact, on the judge's copy, I had it highlighted because I was thinking this was one of the pieces of evidence that the people were moving to have the court admit. Now, as to Mr. Hostika's point, I do agree with Mr. Hostika that in and of itself, it really is meaningless. But as both parties know, the court's required to consider evidence collectively, altogether. And altogether, I'm finding it is relevant for this reason, Mr. Hostika. And I'm anticipating that at some point I'm going to have to make a decision whether we actually have a homicide here. And in my mind, on that point, this evidence, collectively with what I've heard so far, it is relevant. Although, in and of itself, Mr. Hostika, I agree. It really is, has not a lot of it. Connected with what we know so far as has been presented in this preliminary examination, I'm finding that it does have some relevance under 401. A fact of consequence is certainly before the court whether we have a murder, whether there's a dead person here. And so this is relevant under 401 in my mind, and I'm exercising my discretion to allow this piece of evidence on that point.
For further clarification, Your Honor, I soon expect Mr. Hilson to offer evidence that I'm going to have the same objection to, because your ruling allowed evidence of those two charges, other two cases, but not the specifics of what was relevant to those cases. This is one of them that I don't believe is, but you've made your ruling. I'm sure, I don't know if we should cover that ahead of time, but I anticipate that's going to be coming up within a very short time. I didn't object to photos of equipment, but the contents of that equipment, I am going to object to. I don't know, I'm jumping the gun here, Judge. I'm just saying that we will be having that objection in short order. Because my understanding was not, you didn't make rulings as two specific pieces of evidence that Mr. Hilson was going to allege were relevant to these other acts. Just that these other acts are charged and here's what we have as evidence against him for them. Not what's relevant to those particular cases. And if it's pornography or a list of names of serial killers.
I'll tell you this, Mr. Hostika, as I'm really limited in this context because I don't know what evidence you are anticipating coming forward. I don't know the evidence. But I'll say this, on this point, I'm finding this to be relevant, not as really even 404B evidence, as to the issue that's going to be before the court of whether there is a homicide here, whether we have a death. I'm finding that the reference to serial killings in the United States found in the defendant's home is of relevance under 401. So I will gladly entertain any objection that you have and make rulings on it with any evidence that Mr. Hilson intends to present subsequent to this. But on this point, I'm finding that it's not even 404B evidence. This, to me, is relevant on the critical issue of a homicide. And so that's my ruling on this case, and I'll leave it to you to object as you see appropriate, and I'll rule accordingly.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I see, thank you. Yes. Okay, I don't know that we've officially had your answer on this or not, but that is what is Exhibit 88?
It's a document appears to be from Wikipedia that says list of serial killers in the United States, and it's 5 pages.
Okay. Now, there is 2 individuals together where there's a mark, is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
And their names?
Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Norris.
And are you aware of their method of operation when it came to their serial killing spree?
Yes, I am.
What was that?
These 2 gentlemen used a van, and they abducted, raped, tortured, and killed these 5 women.
Hang on a second, Detective. When he objects, you have to stop.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
I think there needs to be some foundation laid here. I don't know where this officer is coming up with this knowledge.
I agree. Mr. Hill
I'll ask
said
the
you could lay
question.
foundation.
Did you do any research on those 2 gentlemen?
Yes, I did.
What did you do?
2 different things. First, I went to this list that's on Wikipedia and reviewed what they had listed, and then I confirmed that information on the internet. I don't have specific websites at this point, though.
Okay, but you did some research on the internet as it relates to not only that list,
Right.
but those 2 individuals.
Specifically those 2 individuals, yes.
All right, and I'm assuming you read articles.
Yes.
Were these gentlemen caught?
Yes. Both are currently in prison.
Okay, so they were caught, they were prosecuted,
Yep.
and there's documentation of what they did.
Absolutely, yes.
All right, and is that what you're basing your answer off of when I asked that question?
Yes, it is.
My objection would be hearsay. I mean, we all know what's on the internet is got to be true, right?
I'm tending to agree with Mr. Hostica. What is on the 5 pages? That's really what
Sure.
I'm...
What's on the 5 pages?
Let me ask this question. The 5 pages, were those 5 pages, Detective, found at the South Sheridan Road address?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So those physical pieces of paper were at the residence?
Yes.
All right. On that, you may proceed.
All right, thank you, Judge.
Okay.
So
So,
let's stick with
As to the objection as to hearsay from the internet, at this point, I'm sustaining that objection.
That's fine, Judge. I'll move on. So the 5 pieces of paper that you have in your hand that was obtained from the residence is, you indicated it's a list of serial killers in the United States.
Yes.
Is that in fact what it is, a list of serial killers in the United States?
Yes, it is.
Does it contain both known and unknown?
Yes.
Okay. And that document, or that series of documents, was found in the shed that's People's Exhibit 54?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Now, do you recall also finding some clothing?
Yes.
I'm going to go show this to Mr. Hoskett. Throw those on.
All right.
When you've got the gloves on, you can ask the question, please. Okay, first, where did you find these articles of clothing?
These were in the shed. There's a second level to the shed and the stairwell up, right on, like, in the edge, tucked behind it's kind of like a little edge between the upper level and the trusses that come down. Kind of hard to explain that. Do you know if there's a picture we can look at maybe to help explain that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Tucked down in there. So,
This is number, what are we talking
This is
about?
89.
Thank you.
in case I could use this as an example, this is the second level where the trusses come down here. There's a gap that would basically be, maybe 4 inches down, maybe this wide, around the entire outside edge of that shed. And those tucked down in there.
Okay, so I guess the follow-up question is, was it visible? Why in the open jet did you have to search to find it?
It was not visible. You could not see it. I actually was just feeling around with my hand in through that edge, and that's when I felt
Okay. And what, in Exhibit 89, what is that?
This is going to be it was a plastic baggie. Inside of that was tin foil, and then inside of that tin foil is what turned out to be 2 pairs of ladies' underwear.
Okay. You know what, I won't have you pull it up, but, I mean, as you look at that, is that what you recovered in that little area in the upper shed?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And I'm sorry, it was 2 pairs?
2 pairs, yes.
Now, when you were looking in the shed itself, did you ever find an airsoft pistol?
I did not know.
Did you ever find a fake gun? A gun that looked real but was actually fake?
No,
How about a toy gun?
I did not find a toy gun.
Your Honor, based on Detective Peaske's testimony, I move to admit the pictures, Exhibit 54 and 55. No objection.
54 is a photo of the shed, and 55 is the photograph, I believe, of a greenstone canvas bag.
Correct, that's correct.
So, without objection, 54 and 55 are admitted into evidence.
And I'd also move for the admission of Exhibit 88 and 89, the serial killer list and the underwear.
Mr. Hasaka, the record is clear, you're objecting to 88,
Yes, Your Honor.
and I assume 89 as well?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, so the objection is to 89 is preserved, unless you are best here. Your objection to 89, relevant. You want to make a specific objection, not a general objection.
Well, we can leave it as a general objection, Judge.
All right?
Well, Judge, obviously, I'm going to tie this up, but for the court's purposes, I anticipate 2 things. One, I anticipate the owner of that underwear, who also happens to be the gun owner of the Walter P-22, to indicate those are her underwear. Further, I anticipate the DNA lab to tell us that her DNA is on both pairs of those underwear. And that's relevant to show the connection of the defendant to the weapon. That's kind of the hub of all 3 of these cases.
All right.
I don't know how underwear leads to a gun, Judge.
Well, it leads to
Whether
when
it's
you
whether it's
steal the
this
gun
woman's
and
underwear.
Don't talk over each other. Go ahead. Mr. Oscar, you said there's no connection between the gun and the underwear.
Correct.
Mr. Hilson.
Judge, I anticipate the testimony to be that the gun owner hid her gun in her closet, which would have been next to her laundry basket. So the idea is that not only did he take the gun when he had the opportunity, he took a couple pair of her underwear as well.
All right. And as an offer of proof, you're saying that's
Yes.
you're anticipating.
That's what I'm anticipating the testimony to be.
All right. Well, given what I know so far about the gun that's been admitted, specifically the Walter P-22 caliber gun that's in evidence already, I'm finding that it's the genesis of that, where it came from, is directly relevant in this matter. And then I would also find that under MRE 401, that as corroborative evidence, the fact that the individual, as an offer of proof that Mr. Hilson made, that will come forward and say that that is her gun and was taken without permission, the fact that he's got 2 pair of her underwear hidden in a shed, and I can use that word, given my infection, is relevant as well. So I'm admitting 89 over objection and 88 over objection. I should say that given the order of in the presentation of evidence, it would be conditionally relevant, certainly under 104B, conditioned on Mr. Hilson producing proof, as he said in his offer of proof. So it's conditionally relevant under 401 and 104B. Mr. Hilton.
Thank you, Judge. I have no other questions of this witness.
May I see exhibit 88, please? Mr. Hoskins, cross.
Afternoon, Detective.
Good afternoon.
You executed a search warrant on this shed?
Yes.
You have no idea how any of these things got in the shed, right?
I do not.
You have no idea who had access to the shed?
When we arrived, the shed was locked with a padlock.
Okay, but you don't know who had access to that shed?
True.
You don't know how long any of those things have been in there, right? I'm speaking generally about the
Generally,
group.
I don't know the exact time frame. No.
The padlock was secured? Was it locked?
I didn't see it directly. I was informed that it was padlocked.
Oh, so somebody told you that?
That is correct.
Okay, well, I didn't strike that testimony, which is hearsay.
He asked the question.
Well, Mr. Hostka, you asked a question
I said, I'm sorry, Jack, go
that
ahead.
I think led to a fair answer. I mean, you asked him about I think in a general sense, who may have had access to that shed, and I think he phrased that anybody could have had access to the shed. And I don't want to mischaracterize the question, but that's my memory of at least the gist of it.
I said you don't know who had access to that shed. His response was it was padlocked, but somebody told him that.
All right, well, that's hearsay. I'm going to strike it.
No further questions.
I have nothing else, Judge. Thank you.
All right, and I have no questions, Detective. May this witness be excused?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Your Honor.
Detective, thank you very much. You are
Thank you.
excused.
The people of the state of Michigan call Detective Sergeant Zach Sparks to the stand.
Please raise your right hand. Matter not putting before this court, be solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Have a seat, state your name, occupation, for the record.
Zachary Sparks, Detective Sergeant, Michigan State Police, currently assigned to the Hart Post.
Detective Sparks, how long have you been with the state police?
21 years.
And I know you're assigned to the Hart Post as one of their detectives, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Were you asked to come in and assist in this investigation back in May of 2016?
Yes, I was.
And in particular, do you recall taking part of the stopping and taking Mr. Willis, the defendant, in custody?
Yes, I did.
And, sir, showing you what has been marked as people's exhibits 10, 11, and 12. Just give me a minute here to get there. There's people's pen, on your screen.
Yes, sir.
People's 11 and People's 12. The night that you came in contact with the defendant, was he in fact driving that vehicle?
Yes, he was.
And was that the vehicle that was later searched by State Police Crime Lab personnel?
Yes.
And is the person that was driving that vehicle in court today?
Yes, he is.
Could you point him out and describe what he's wearing, please?
Orange jumpsuit at the defendant's table.
Your Honor, let the record reflect the witness as identified the defendant.
The record will reflect the identification.
Now, did you also participate or assist in the search of property associated with the defendant?
Yes, I did.
That property being 3083 Bailey.
Yes, sir. It's 3038.
3038, sorry, I typed it wrong, my bad. 3038 Bailey.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, in particular, was there kind of an outbuilding or shed at that property as well?
There was. On the north side of the residence, there's a detached one-stall garage.
Showing you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 57. Do you recall this being inside that particular garage?
Yes, I do. I took that photograph.
All right. And People's Exhibit 58, what are we looking at in this photograph?
That's the same trash can that was just seen in the prior picture.
And finally, People's Exhibit 59.
That is an piece of evidence note that was located in the top part of that trash can.
Okay. Give me 1 second, please. Showing you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 90. Can you pull it out and tell us what we're looking at?
These
Your Honor, before we announce what we're looking at, I didn't get a chance, I have no idea what it is, other than being told that it's that note that I can't see.
Sure.
Want to take a look at it?
Could I?
Yeah.
Yeah, come on.
Thank you.
Oh.
I have the same objection, Your Honor.
Judge.
When you say the same objection, I assume you mean relevant.
Yes.
I don't know what is Crawford in 90, Mr. Hilton.
Well, Judge, I mean, I guess I can do it either way. I can tell you, I can show you, and
How about
then.
we show?
All right.
Yeah, I'm open to that.
Just one side, Judge.
So this is 90?
That's 90.
I should say proposed 90.
Yes.
All right, I've reviewed that. At least the side that was facing up.
Yeah, there's only one side, just one side.
All right, I've reviewed that.
All right, so I guess to counter the objection to relevance, I think it goes to as the court, I think, indicated before, one of the biggest things, one of the things that the court has to determine at the probable cause stage is whether or not Jessica Heeringa, certainly I think whether or not Jessica Heeringa was abducted, and certainly whether or not she was killed at the hands of a criminal agency. This note is relevant in the fact that the court has already accepted and received items of evidence found in the defendant's vehicle that match this checklist, if you will.
All right, Mr. Husker, anything else?
There's miscellaneous items listed on here, Judge, and does recite some of the things found in Mr. Willis's van. It's found in a garbage can, and it contains, it stretches the definition of relevance, in my mind, Your Honor, to say that that list in the garbage has any relevance to any of the cases or any of the charges against Mr. Willis.
Thank you. Mr. Hilson, if we could, my issue at this point is the connection on this record with the defendant and
Oh, sure.
3038 Bailey.
No, I can clear that up, Judge. I understand what you're asking. I can ask this witness to that.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Why was law enforcement searching 3038 Bailey?
3038 Bailey was the address of Lawrence Willis, who is a relative of Jeffrey Willis.
And up to I guess, at some point in time, did Lawrence Willis pass away?
Yes, he did.
When roughly, do you remember when?
It was June 20th of 2011.
Now, through the investigation, Detective Sparks, were you made aware that at some point in time the defendant actually kind of took, I don't know if ownership is the right word, but certainly took control of that piece of property?
Yes, I was aware of that.
Okay. And certainly, was that somewhat of the significance of searching that particular property on this particular date?
Yes, it was.
All right, what was the relationship, if you're aware, Detective Sparks, between Mr. Willis and Lawrence Willis?
I believe it was his father, but he was referred to as Grandpa Ham, so it's possible it was his grandfather. It's one of the two.
All right, with that foundation laid, I am going to admit People's Proposed Exhibit 90, I believe it is, right?
Yes, sir.
It's 90. And here's why. The felony complaint before this court charges count 1, homicide, open murder, as it applies to Jessica Lynn Heeringa. Count 2 contains the charge of kidnapping, and specifically the allegation is that the defendant, on or about April 26th of 2013, that he did knowingly restrain Jessica Lynn Heeringa with intent to engage in criminal sexual penetration or criminal sexual contact with that person, contrary to MCL 750.349. I'm finding it's directly relevant as to the kidnapping charge and then ultimately the homicide charge or the murder charge that flows from that. But the contents of 90 matching almost identically to contents found in the van ultimately that's already been admitted as evidence in a home with a connection to the defendant, to me, is relevant under 401 of the Michigan Rules of Evidence, and therefore I'm overruling the objection.
Thank you. Detective Sparks, what's on that list?
The list, would you like me to read it, sir? Would you like me to go through the list? It's broken down into 3 sections. Top section labeled clothes with a square around it. And then below it, there's 2 different ink colors and asterisk marks next to the item, specific item. Shirt, pants, underwear, and her panties, socks, shoes, hoodie, coat with a question mark, wallet, watch, keys, phone. And then the second section, it's divided by a line. There's no heading, so to speak, on this one. Still the asterisks on all of the items. Small camera, big camera, small tripod with a question mark, big tripod with a question mark, gas can, matches, lube, video from house, if any, crowbar, and then again another dividing section with a line, a horizontal line, and then this one is labeled kit with a square around it. Again, most of these items have asterisks on them. There's one section that's got an asterisk and it's divided with 4 additional hash marks of items. First part is parenthesis 2, parenthesis handcuffs and keys, restraint bar, hood, parenthesis 2, parenthesis ball gag with an S in a different colored ink to make ball gags, restraint board, question mark, toolbox, locks and keys, gloves, tape and washcloth, vibrator bullet, neck restraint, bag of rubber gloves, and then this is the one that has the asterisk with the 4 additional hash. It's vibrator bag, hash vibrator, hash batteries, parenthesis 2, parenthesis, condom, French tickler, and then this is the next asterisk. It's zip ties, parenthesis 19 small, and then parenthesis 7, parenthesis big. Needles, parenthesis 4, parenthesis, and then hook and rope. And that is in, appears to be in pencil. Everything else is in either blue, I guess black or red ink.
All right. Now, did you also get an opportunity to search the inside of 3038 Bailey?
Yes, I did.
And in particular, down in the basement, showing you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 60. What are we looking at in this photograph?
This is a photograph of the basement of 3038 Bailey. It's the direction I'm standing is facing to the east in the basement. This is going to be the southeast basement corner.
All right. What are we looking at in this photograph?
At this point, the photograph, I took this photograph also. At the point that I took this photograph, there was investigators that were in the basement searching, and those items, I believe, were moved from the workbench that's right behind it in the area of that trash can that's right there in the middle of the screen into that area. I did not move them into that spot, but I don't believe that's where they were resting when they were located.
But I guess the important part is, were all those items found in the basement in that area?
All of those items were in that corner, yes.
And what are they, sir?
There was 6 tied powder boxes, 1 tied bottle, and 4 bleach bottles.
Now, prior to being a police officer, did you work loss prevention, or did you work in some fashion with retail, grocery?
I did. When I was 14, 15, 16 years old, I worked at a grocery store.
Now, are bottles and boxes, do they have a particular code that tells somebody, whether it's the store or whomever, when they were manufactured?
They do. From my familiarity with working stock in a grocery store, some items, particularly these kind of items with chemicals, they're labeled with manufacture dates. And I was aware of that from back in the day doing sell-by dates and stock on shelves, knowing that there would have been some sort of a code on these.
And of these items, did any of them have a readable or decipherable code to them that you would be able to essentially figure out when they were manufactured?
They did. The 4 bleach bottles all did. One of them was a little difficult to read, but it was legible. The tied bottle did, and one of the boxes still had the code on it.
Now, from the Clorox bleach bottles, were you able to, as you said, you were able to see those, were you able to determine manufacture dates from your I guess, knowledge and experience.
I was. I called, there's just the 800 number that's on the back of the boxes, and I got, I'm not sure, I called the Clorox one first. I'm not sure if that was Wisconsin or Florida, but it was a customer service representative at one of those locations that had talked me through how to decipher what the code meant and how to date it.
All right. And what did you find out about the Clorox bottle?
The Clorox bottles they started with the letter A, and then there was a variety of numbers after it. The first two, the letter and the first number, A3 on all of the bottles, was a plant identifier. The third, I guess, character, or the second digit, would be the year of manufacture, and then the next three would be the day of that year.
All right, of those 4 bottles, then, could you tell us which or when they were manufactured?
Yes, one of the Clorox bottles was July 31st of 13. Two of them were August. One was August 7 of 13. The other was August 11 of 13. And sorry.
I'm sorry.
So it'd be July 31st of 13, August 7th of 13, August 11th of 13, and the fourth one was March 14th of 13. And I'd have to look at my report to recall if that's exactly right, but I'm pretty sure that's right.
All right. Now, you indicated that the Tide bottle also had marks that you could read?
It did. The code was a little bit different, and that code, the first digit was the year, and then the preceding 3 were the day of that year. So there was no plant number at the beginning of that. It was just the very first digit was the year of manufacture.
Okay, and what year was that manufactured?
That one was January 31st of 13.
All right. And of the one Tide box that you were able to decipher, what did that tell you?
That was also the same way. The very first digit was the year, and the next 3 were the day of that year. And that was November 11th of 13.
Now, did all...
I'm sorry, November 1st of 13.
Okay.
11/1 of 13.
We know that Clorox is bleach. The Tide boxes, did they have a bleach concentrate to them, do you recall?
I'd have to look closer at them, but I believe it was tied with bleach.
All right. And I don't know if the Tide bottle...
I don't recall that either. I'd have to
Okay.
look at it closer.
In your review of the basement itself, did you find any washing machine?
There was no washing apparatus in the basement. There was a wash bin. It was also on that east wall, but it was further towards the north direction. It was like a basin, faucet basin type of.
Now, is it safe to say, because you walked through this entire house, is that right?
I did.
There were appliances in the house.
I couldn't tell you what ones. There was a refrigerator in the basement on the north wall. I don't recall if there was a refrigerator on the main floor, but there was a stove in place.
Okay. Were there any washing machines on the first level of the house?
No, I'm sure of that.
All right. Did you happen to notice any evidence of any type of water damage, whether it be on the basement level, first level, or second level?
No, there was nothing that was clearly obvious water damage. The main floor of the house, there was a large spot in the middle of the kitchen floor that it could have been from some sort of water, but it wasn't. I don't know. It was just like the middle of the floor, maybe a 6 or 8 foot kind of diameter spot.
Asking the question a little more specifically, Detective, did it appear as though there had been any flooding in the basement?
I didn't believe so.
Now, there is the water, I guess, connection was via well, is that right?
Yes, I was able to determine. I went through the utilities part of the residence and determined that residence is a sewer-only service through Norton Shores Department of Public Works. It is a well service for water, and of course electric consumers for power.
Okay. But as far as you could tell, as you walked through that, there was no evidence of any severe or slight water damage that may have happened through flooding?
I couldn't say that one way or another. It was a concrete basement. To me, it didn't look like it.
Detective, I have to back you up, and I apologize. First, Mr. Hilson, the photograph that we've got up here, what number is that?
60.
60.
60.
Thank you. And Detective, you said the house was principally serviced by sewer, or was it septic? I was writing, and I apologize.
No, it is a sewer service to the city. The septic system was tied off. I would have to refer to my report on that, but I believe it was in the 60s that it was tied off from what I documented on that. Strictly a sewer only, though. There was no water service to that residence.
Okay, no water service. No running water.
No water service from the city. It would have been a well
well.
service.
Well,
Mike, thank you for the clarification. Sorry, Judge.
and while I've interrupted, was there a washer, like a washing machine in the basement?
No.
And I apologize for the interruption.
It's okay.
Proceed, Mr. Hilson.
Just a couple more questions. In your search of that house, did you find any airsoft gun?
No.
Did you find a fake gun that looks real but is actually fake?
No.
Did you find a toy gun of any kind?
No.
Thank you. I have nothing else. Sorry, Judge. I would like to move for the admission of exhibits 57, 58, 59, and 60. Those are the photographs, the 4 photographs.
As to 57, 58, 59, and 60, Mr. Hospital.
I already objected to 59, Your Honor. I think that was the list was 90?
The list was actually 90.
Okay, no objection.
Okay. As to the photographs, there being no objection, 57, 58, 59, and 60, I believe you included in that, is that what, Mr. Hilson?
Yes, sir.
And 60 are admitted into evidence.
I have no further questions of Detective Spud.
Mr. Hospital, cross.
Afternoon, Detective.
Good afternoon, sir.
This was a search done at 3038 Bailey on May 17th.
It was divided into 2 days, sir, May 17th and 18th.
Records stayed. I don't know if you stayed, but several officers spent the night there to keep it secure, right?
Yes, sir.
Basically.
Yes, sir.
And you arrived there on the 17th.
I did.
And on the 18th, the reason why you were waiting was for the lab guys, right? The state police lab.
Yes, sir. On the 17th, when we arrived to execute the search warrant, we secured the residence, prepared to do the search, and then stepped back, and I made contact with the lab and had a discussion with Lieutenant Crump regarding the response of the lab and availability, and it was determined at that time that we would do lab analysis the next day.
Okay. So you were there for the big picture, more obvious stuff, search on the 17th, and the lab guys were there for the real fine detailed stuff on the 18th, right? Basically?
Well, on the 17th, the interior of the residence was secured, made safe, the garage area. We had discussion regarding searching the garage prior to lab arrival, and we searched the garage on the 17th.
Okay. But not only the lab people on the 18th, but also dogs?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the dogs found something, right?
They hit on a couple of areas, yes, sir.
Yep. They found a dead mouse in the garage, right?
Yes, sir.
During your search, did you uncover any sign of any human remains, blood, tissue, whatever?
No.
And you checked the outside area too, the grounds?
Yes, sir.
Nothing there either?
No.
Just a bunch of cleaning stuff, bleach, basically, and your note?
Yes, sir.
Found in the garbage. And that note was found in the garbage, right?
Yes, sir.
And it was a garbage that was in the garage, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you're aware of the owner of that property being either Mr. Willis's father or grandfather, right?
Yes, I don't recall. I don't know that I ever asked that question.
Okay. But you knew he was referred to as Grandpa Ham?
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware that that property was still going through probate?
No.
After Grandpa Ham's death?
I know there was a period of time where there's a son also named Lawrence Willis that, and again, this is all kind of third-hand information. There was a period of time when there was a dispute or some debate with Mr. Willis regarding the property. But I don't know the details of it, sir. It was just investigative sharing of information regarding the residents.
Okay, are you aware that he has 4 brothers?
I thought it was 3, but that sounds right. I didn't talk to any of his relatives.
But you were never made aware that this property is still being, basically, this might be too strong a word, but fought over or going through probate over. You weren't aware of that?
I was aware there was an issue. I was not aware that there was an issue at that moment.
Wasn't there a second? I don't know if you were even involved, but there was another subsequent search? of that
There were
property?
3 searches of that residence, and I was involved in all 3.
You were involved in all 3? This was the first that we're hearing about on the 17th?
Yes, sir.
Why the second?
The second was due to, we had developed the possibility of a SD sniffing canine.
SD?
SD card, I'm sorry, a digital evidence sniffing canine that was available. At that point, we developed information that we were potentially looking for some sort of a memory device that may have evidence that we have not located. And that canine was requested, and a new search warrant was drafted and used.
You basically tore the place apart, right?
That was on the 3rd search, sir.
Third search?
Yes, sir.
The third search, you basically tore the place apart.
Yes, sir.
Took down drywall, checked every nook and cranny, right?
I didn't take drywall down,
No,
but there was,
You were there, you saw.
yes,
it,
sir.
Right. Okay. Anything?
No.
No further questions?
Just so I'm clear, Jessica Heeringa went missing in 2013, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you guys were searching in 2016?
Yes, sir.
3.5 years had gone by, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. I have no, I'm sorry, Judge, I have no further questions.
Okay, and I have no questions. May Detective Sparks be excused?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Haskell?
Yes.
Detective, you're excused. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome.
People of the state of Michigan call Gwen, I'm going to butcher her last name, Mogenberg, to the stand.
Please raise your right hand. And matter not beneath before this court, do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Have a seat, state your name and spell your last name for the record, please.
Gwen Mogenberg, Moegggenborg.
Thank you. Mr. Hilton?
Good afternoon, Ms. Mogenberg. Could you tell the court where you're employed?
I work at Herman Miller.
And what is your role at Herman Miller?
I am a human resource manager.
As part of your role as human resource manager, do you keep track of things like when employees take vacation, the hours that they work, things like that?
We do.
And does Herman Miller keep whether it's an electronic or paper form of those types of records?
Yes.
Okay. And are you the person that kind of is responsible, or I'll call the custodian of those records?
Our department is, yes.
Okay. And if I understood correctly, you kind of oversee that department?
I do, yes.
All In particular, can you tell us, did a person by the name of Jeffrey Willis work for Herman Miller?
Yes, he did.
And when did he start at Herman Miller?
I don't know his exact date of hire.
Okay. Can you tell us what shift he worked?
He was on third shift.
And if you could kind of explain to the court how that shift system works, because it's a little goofy.
It is a little confusing. Our employees work a Monday through Friday shift. The third shift employees actually start on a Sunday night for their Monday shift. So they encompass 6 different days during the week, Sunday through Friday morning for those 5 shifts.
Okay. So in the defendant's case, then, his work week would start Sunday night,
Correct.
and his work week would end early Friday morning.
Yes,
Okay. And he would have Saturday off
correct.
and most of Sunday.
Correct.
And is that true, that be normally the defendant's typical days off, all day Saturday and then part of Sunday?
Correct.
Now, do you also have a person that works by the name of Michelle, and I'm going to butcher her last name, is it Shuntella?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, I think it's Shnotala.
Shnotella. And did she work the same shift as the defendant?
She is also a third shift employee, yes.
Now, obviously, Herman Miller is kind of a big corporation, different plants, different locations. Did Michelle and the defendant work in the same area?
I don't know that I can answer that definitively.
Okay.
For a period of time, they were working in the same facility, in the
Okay.
same plant.
Same plant. Now, I want to kind of direct your attention to 2013, in particular, April 25th of 2013. It would have been a Friday. Would have been a Thursday. Thursday. Do you recall whether or not the defendant had the day off on that particular day? That'd be Thursday, April 25th, 2013.
According to timekeeping records, the defendant worked his Thursday shift, which started on the 24th into the 25th.
Okay.
And I believe had a vacation day for his Friday, which was beginning on Thursday evening into Friday morning.
All right. And just so that, and again, I know that the shifts are confusing. So he would have finished his work early Friday morning, right?
Yes.
Which is what time?
I believe the shift ended at 5:45 in the morning.
5:45 a.m.
Correct.
And if it was a normal work week for the defendant, he would have come back to work Friday night. No?
No, he would have, if he were working his 5th day or his Friday, that would have been the Thursday night start time.
Okay.
On April 25th into Friday morning, April 26th.
Okay.
And that 5th day, he had a vacation day.
All right. So he didn't work essentially his Friday, which would have been the 25th, 26th.
Correct.
I'll get it. Trust me. Then he had a normal Saturday. And do your records reflect if in fact he showed up to work on the 28th of April, which would have been Sunday night?
They do, a regular workday, yes.
And what time did he show up to work on Sunday night?
I don't recall that off the top of my head. I'd have to take a look at the records.
Do you have those with you?
I don't have a copy with me.
Okay.
I do know he showed up for his regular shift at a regular time.
All right. And was that typically the 9 o'clock p.m. hour, 9:30ish hour?
Somewhere around there typically, yes.
Okay. Now, in particular also, do your records indicate him taking some time off, like more than a day, like a week, essentially?
Of 2013.
Thank you, Judge. I have no further questions of Ms. Mogenberg.
Mr. Hopkins, Ms. Ross.
Afternoon, ma'am. Does Herman Miller give a certain number of days vacation each year to their employees?
They do, based upon your length of service.
Okay. And do they have something where you have to use them by a certain period of time or you lose them?
Yes.
Okay. What's the cutoff date?
Annually, our fiscal year ends at the end of May, so vacation for that year has to be complete by the end of May.
Okay. So is it unusual for a large number of requests to come in as the deadline approaches for like April and May?
That would not be unusual.
Okay. Did you actually work with Mr. Willis?
I did not.
Did you know him?
I did not.
Have you ever met him?
I have not.
Did you bring the records with you today, or did you previously send them on?
I've previously sent them on.
Okay. Is it possible, you're saying that he had the March 5, 6, 7 off?
That sounds correct.
Okay. I think that's what you said. Just wanted to verify. Okay, thank you.
Any redirect, Mr. Hilton?
No, sir.
I have no questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
ma'am. Well, is the witness excused, Mr. Hilton?
Yes, Judge.
Mr. Hoskins?
Yes, Your Honor.
You're excused, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Gentlemen, we're going to take about just a 5-minute break.
Yeah, that's fine.
5-minute break.
Yeah.
And we're going to go till 10 till.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
You're coming.
Be short.